I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, a bonus episode, Transformations with Life Coaching with Allyson. I used to think of myself as the wife of a porn addict, but I do not think of myself that way anymore, and you don't have to either. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you can stop living your life around your husband's pornography addiction. I am going to teach you how to stop being the victim and how to conquer his pornography addiction, even if he never does. I'm Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach, and I am a member of the LDS faith and the wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the Porn Addict's Wife. Hello, my ladies. I am super excited to be bringing you a guest speaker on today's podcast. I reached out to all of my clients recently and I just said, hey, if anybody wants to share their story on the podcast, I would love it. And I had several clients who were all super excited and ready to share their story. And this is Allyson's story. And I am so excited to be bringing you this series and to be dropping these randomly throughout the year because it's so important for you to hear other people's stories. Because while you may resonate with some of mine, there are going to be other people who say things that resonate with you more, some where you see yourself in another person's story. And I think that that's so powerful, and that's what I wanted to share. So I am just so grateful to Allyson and to each one of my clients who come on the podcast. And I hope you guys honor them with their sensitivity and their willingness to come and share their story with you and recognize I want you guys to encourage you to keep your minds open and your heart open to what they're saying, and hopefully this will help you in some way. They're here to share their story and to share what their biggest struggles are and the things that they've grown most in, and I just am so grateful to each one of them and to be part of their journey. And so here is my conversation with Allyson. All right. I am very excited today to have Allyson on the podcast, and I will do a whole intro and I'll put that in before, so don't worry. But this is Allyson. Allyson is one of my clients, and she was so gracious to come on the podcast today and share a little bit of her story. So Allyson, let's dive in, and I want you to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jolene. I'm super excited to be here. I'm trying to think of how to introduce myself and stay anonymous.
You don't have to give a lot of details. Just tell a little bit of your story then. Like why are you coaching with me? And what brought you to me? And how'd you find me? That kind of stuff.
Okay. So it's amazing. Actually, when I was thinking about interviewing with you this past week after you shouted out that idea, I remembered that, well, maybe I'll give a little bit more backstory first.
Okay.
I knew about my husband's addiction before we got married.
Okay.
So I had this mentality of, I know what I'm getting into. Mm-hmm. And I didn't.
We never do, but that's okay.
But I was grateful that it was an open and honest communication. So fast forward 9 years, I reached this point where I had just really shifted a lot of my paradigms when it came to pornography, especially addictions, and like, when is it actually an addiction, and how many are actually dealing with this, and does it define the man, because I definitely, before knowing about his addiction, I definitely saw pornography as this thing that it is icky. I don't agree with it, but that it makes the person viewing it then is just a gross person, right?
Yes.
And they're going to do gross things and they're going to become evil and bad. So then when I found out that he was dealing with this, I realized that was my first shift, because he was the best man I had ever dated. I realized it had nothing to do with his character.
Right.
So that, I think, is what allowed me to go into the marriage, because for me, I had dated someone else who was so disrespectful and unkind to me that for sure I was like, oh, he's addicted to pornography, the way he treated me. I don't know if he was or not.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
So then with my husband, when I knew he was, I was like, what? Because he's so respectful of
Mhm.
women. So how can this be? So yeah, that just made it easier to be in a relationship with him. But then all of the beliefs I had surrounding pornography and just what a horrible sin it is to view it,
Mm-hmm.
really difficult for me to like communicate my feelings to him and to not be on edge all the time, always monitoring and filtering. And he
Mm-hmm.
told me, you need to like help me stay accountable. And that just gave me so much anxiety.
Yes. What did
So,
that look like when you were the one that was being accountable? What did that look like?
um,
Like, were you always checking his phone? Like, did you get email
it
alerts?
was a computer filter.
Okay.
Like I had the password, I could view what he'd been on.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything ever came up that was questionable, I'd ask him,
Mm-hmm.
and it was no, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't very often, and I didn't even like checking it that often because I already had anxiety about what I might see.
Yes.
And then I just trusted that, okay, if he's saying no, he didn't, then he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I believed him because I always, like I said, I was on edge. He's staying up late or he's sleeping in. I'm just already in a bad mood.
Yes.
So what
Mm-hmm.
does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was all within the first few years of marriage. I think I finally just wasn't checking his filter anymore after a while,
Mm-hmm.
or I got to a point where I felt like I had another child that I was taking care of.
Yes. Yes. See, this is such a good point. I'm going to pause you right here because there's so many women. It's very, very tempting to want to be the accountability partner. This is why I don't recommend it because, again, most of the time it just heightens our own anxiety, even though our brain really wants to know. Our brain thinks it's better to know than to not know. But even when you do know, just like you were saying, you were like, I even saw the things, and I would say, all right, what is this? And he would tell me, you still have to choose whether or not you're going to believe him. Right. So him telling you, or you knowing, quote unquote, knowing, being able to see everything that he's looking at doesn't actually make you feel any better because you still have to choose whether you believe what you're seeing. Right. And then the other part of this is that we're just most of the time not in a place where we're capable of maintaining a relationship that we want, a marriage relationship. It inevitably shifts when you are monitoring someone else's behavior like a parent and bringing things to their attention. You shift that relationship to a parent-child relationship or to a I always say this before, like a cop relationship or a parole officer. It's like you're in charge. You are above the other person. And that's not healthy. And in a marriage, you want to be on the same level, not where you're one above.
Yeah.
Such a
And
good
I would say I totally, you know this, that I've had like this superiority complex in the past where
point.
I was
Mhm.
above him in some ways. And then in other ways, it was more like I was just serving him, you know, that
Mhm.
accountability person. One attitude was more like this spirituality, superiority. And then the other one, though, is I'm beneath him because I'm serving him. I've got to make sure the
Oh my
best.
gosh, that's so interesting. Oh, I
And
love that.
even things from like cleaning the house
Mm.
because I'm supporting him in his career, like just
Yes.
all of, and
Mm.
I just started to resent him so much. So I started listening to so many podcasts and books, audiobooks. Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife was one of the main ones that really, really helped me start shifting my thinking and focus on my own character
Mhm.
rather than worrying about my husband. that really was like a couple of years though, that I was just listening to these podcasts. And this is why at the beginning of the interview, I was saying I was so excited thinking back, because I didn't even make the connection until recently that one of the interviews I listened to with Dr. Finlayson Fife was with you.
Yeah.
And I had saved that interview, and it wasn't until, and like I've been one of your clients for several months now, but it wasn't until just recently when I shared that podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Jolene.
That's
He
me.
was the one that helped me shift that thinking a couple of years ago. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So then how I came to you was it was coming up on a year ago that my husband opened up to me more. And so my whole world shifted. However, I was in a place where I was able to handle it so much better because of all of the coaching courses I've taken and the certification I was in. He felt comfortable coming to me, like it was a safe space. He told me, like, I feel like I can open up to you more and you can handle it, because you always were anxious before, which was true.
Yeah.
And it was amazing this time that he opened up to me. I felt so much love for him. While I would say in the present moment, while he was first telling me everything, I just was astounded by the love I felt for him. Like it was almost this can't even be me, because this feels so incredible and peaceful. And so I just listened, and I was so grateful that he was being open with me, and it made me feel closer to him, that he could finally be vulnerable, because he's not that way. And I did really well for about 4 days. Because I had
4 days. It was a good 4 days.
I had all the tools, and everything I had been learning in coaching like kicked into high gear. And I went for those 4 days, and then kind of crashed. And I was really gentle with myself and told him too, like, okay, I obviously need to process this more. But then as time went on, I started to project a lot of fears into the future. What is it going to look like now? I kept trying to stay present. Nothing has changed. He's just told me things, but we're still us. We're still doing these things. But it was so hard to not give everything new meaning and think that my whole life had just flipped upside down.
100%.
And it was that same time that you interviewed with Jody Moore. I heard your interview again, and you were doing a coach week. So I came to that coach week.
I remember.
Sign up then,
No, you did not. I remember. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I am grateful for the whole journey I've been on and how I've seen the difference, because spending that summer without having your support and torturing myself without it, thinking I could coach myself. I remember telling you how irritated I was by your emails, because I really wanted it.
That's okay. I think there's a lot of people who probably feel the same way.
Well, the reason I was so irritated though is because I kept thinking in my head, I know it's just my own thoughts, and that makes me even more mad. I wanted to blame you, but I really wanted to be coached. I wanted to join your program, but I was coming up with all the excuses. And finally decided to join. I did one of your master classes in October and felt like, okay, my husband's in the medical field and he doesn't treat and diagnose himself. He still has to go to someone. I need to go to someone.
Yes.
So that gave me
this. This is such a fascinating thing, because you are a coach. You have so many tools. And I think that, I mean, that's even things that I've done in the past. Even there was something that came up for me when I was in life coach training, and something came up with my husband, and I was like, no, I think I know everything. I think I know what I should do. And I did it, but it was so hard. And I was reaching out to everybody. I was like, I need somebody else. I need someone else because it's so hard. Even when you have the tools, the power of having a coach is because we are so in it that it's so helpful to just have someone else who's not, someone else who maybe sees things that you aren't even looking at. And I was talking about this, I mentioned this yesterday on the call, on our group call, is that sometimes we're so in it, it's like we're looking down. So ladies, whoever's listening on the podcast, like if you look down, wherever you are, look down. You can't see what's 3 feet in front of you because you're looking straight down. Your gaze can't take it in. So having a coach is like having someone who is standing next to you, but is looking up and can actually turn around and see the whole room and take in the whole picture and is able to just stand next to you and be like, you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just only looking at what's down below. And let's open up your gaze a little bit and let's see what else is going on and let's open things up. And that's the beauty of it, is like, I'm outside of you. And it's not that you don't know what you're doing. It's not that you can't do it. It's that you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yes. Yes. And I would say that probably is the number one thing that I am the most grateful for in the coaching. Coming to coach with you and joining your membership is not feeling alone, because that was the hardest part. My husband and I, we were doing fine. It was not fun because he still was so stressed out with work. And like, he was committing to, I'm not going to view pornography anymore. And the struggle was still there mentally.
Yes.
Like, he was angry with himself. He was feeling a lot of shame. I want to still do these things. I want to do even more now, you know? And we would just have some days that were really, really rough. And I was always pointing out the fact that, look how long you've gone, and you've never gone this long before, according to what you've told me, you know. This is amazing. But yeah, obviously he has his own work to do. So I couldn't help him do that. And I just, he knew I can't be the one to help him. We still talk to each other and I can talk to him, but we can't always handle each other's emotions, you know, because we're both dealing with it. I remember you telling me in one coaching session that it was totally okay that, like, we could both be upset about it. We're both upset about it.
Yes, I remember that call. Yes.
That was like so eye-opening to me. But yeah, I was so alone all summer long. I wanted so badly to have someone to talk to. And I did open up just a little bit to my coaching group that I was a part of in my certification, because I felt like I could trust these women, but it's not the same because these are not women who've been through a similar scenario, right? Every woman in our group has totally different stories, but we're dealing with the same issue.
Yes.
So it's amazing to have that community. All the other women are awesome. So I love it.
I love it. I love that you're there. So tell me, what has been, maybe is there something that you have that's been a big major shift for you, or something that you've really, a tool in particular, or maybe something that surprised you that you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was like totally fine in this area, but then it was like, what? I didn't even realize that after coming to coach and uncovering things. Like, is there something that was just mind blowing, or was it just been a lot of little things along the way that have made it like a transformation for you?
Both. Definitely. It's like little by little, I'm just getting better and feeling better because I can feel, I feel my feelings. So I'm better at feeling. And it doesn't always mean I feel happy, right?
Correct.
And you've been an amazing coach with that. And that, again, was one of the things where, like, I thought, I've got this. This is what my coaching program focuses on, is the feelings, not just the thoughts. And it's everything else, you know. But you're so good at helping us process the feeling and recognizing that it's okay to have those feelings instead of away. to just accept it. I loved going through those steps even yesterday on the forgiveness class. It was every time. It's such a good reminder. We don't just, I don't know, our brains don't just learn something once and then we're set for life, because it's different with every single situation. And every day we have new circumstances come up, whether it's with our husband's pornography addiction or just, and that's the other thing. It's not just that. You coach on everything. That was a big draw for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I need someone for this, but I really just need a coach.
Yes.
And so I found out you don't just cover this. You can coach
on you cover everything.
Yeah.
Everything that comes up. That's the beautiful thing about coaching and the beautiful thing about learning how to manage your mind, which is really what I do. I teach the tools to help you manage your mind and feel your feelings and process your emotions, which means they're independent of anything that happens. So I have coached on everything from in-laws to children to habits to weight loss to business, like all of it. Because the truth is, and I say this all the time, especially when women come to me and they say, I want to join your program, but my circumstance is a little bit different. Or my situation isn't probably like most women that you've had. And I say the circumstances, the details of whatever it is that you want coaching on are actually irrelevant. Not unimportant, but they're irrelevant in that the details aren't what matters. What matters is how you're affected. And that's what we work on. That's what we change. That's what you learn how to manage and how to shift if you want to, is how am I going to respond to all of these circumstances, regardless of what they are. And that's the power of all the tools, is they're not specific to pornography addiction and your husband's pornography addiction. You can apply them to anything in your life.
Yeah, it's so cool. And that reminds me of the very first coach week I came to. I remember being a little shocked at some of the things other women's husbands were into, right? We're all at like different levels if we're going to compare. But you've pointed out several times that for each of us, our worst case that we've been through is the worst thing we know, right? And I remember one of the women asking, she's like, oh, I want to join, but I don't know that I like these group calls because, and I remember when she shared what her husband was doing, I was like, wow, that's really mild, It's like, how can she not deal with that? And because I hadn't joined the coaching program and met all these other women yet. And so she made the comment, I don't know that I want to be in the group because then I'm hearing things that are so shocking.
Yes.
It worries me that my husband's going to get into that. And I remember you telling her, helping her see that, well, that's just her thoughts. It's bringing up insecurities that you already have. It's not that these women are introducing new things to you. Like, you are already insecure about it, or else it wouldn't bother you. And I started to notice that with other parts of my life in my own coaching program. If I was on a call and something would come up, I'm like, oh, that's annoying. Or like, that woman needs to change this or that. And then I was like, oh, I want to, like, that's something I need to work on.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Bringing up something for myself. Any judgment in the past, I've noticed anytime I'm passing judgment, it's really judgment on myself. It's not these other women. Like, might be judging them, right? But that's just because I'm comparing myself, and it's something I really need to work on. So because you said that, then I realized, oh, okay, so if I do end up joining this program, it's not about comparing all these different situations and what different people have gone through. Sorry if the train is loud. But it just always comes back to our own thoughts and feelings. So
I love this. And here's something else I love about the group, because I get this a lot too. People get nervous, not only about what other people are going to bring up, because they're like, well, then it'll put ideas into my head and that'll make it worse. Or they'll say, I don't want to bring something up on the call because that's just really hard, which I agree. It is hard to bring stuff up when there's other people listening. But there's two things that are really important to remember. One is that part of the difficulty in opening up part of the beauty of having the group and coaching and sharing it with a coach and with these other women is that it interrupts our own shame cycle. We don't typically think of it as a shame cycle. But it comes out in like embarrassment or in hesitation to want to share, right? It feels very vulnerable. But the more you can practice being vulnerable in a safe space, with a trained professional and a whole bunch of women who have gone through this, the better you're going to be able to do it more with other people in your life, including your husband, right? So when you practice vulnerability, the best place you could do it is in this group. Like there is no safer space. Would you rather be having something come up that you weren't anticipating inside a coaching call with your coach right there and a group of women who've probably felt it too? Or if that's not going if it's not going to come up there, it might come up when you're out to dinner with your husband and somebody walks by and it introduces that thought, that insecurity that you already have has its own opportunity to come up. We have this idea that if we don't, most often what happens when you intentionally put yourself in a place of growth, the growth happens because you are willing to have the insecurity come up on purpose. That's what this group does, which doesn't sound very appealing. I don't think I'm selling this very, very well right now. It sounds terrible, but I mean this in the best way, because here's what happens is if you don't do it on purpose, it's going to happen without you meaning to, and without you having the ability to work through it because you don't know how, or you're too scared, or you don't know what to do with it, or it's too overwhelming, right? Like that's like the first 9 years, right? Where you're like, I thought I was okay and I was good for 4 days. And then like, bam, I was like, nope, not good, right? That's because we feel like we're like, oh, it's okay. I can totally handle all of it. But when you don't have the tools and you're not in a space where you are intentionally looking at and rooting out and getting rid of and purposefully moving forward in the way that you want to, then what's going to happen is life is going to happen and bring it up all on its own, which is exactly what happens with our husband's pornography problem. It's just bringing stuff to the surface. It's bringing to the surface all of our insecurities, the ones we already had, the ones I had since I was 12. Those are the ones that came up, right? It didn't create new ones. It just brought mine up.
You know what that makes me think of, Jolene, since you were saying you're not selling this very well. I totally here's why anyone listening should keep listening and come is I feel like, just a personal example, I have had to change a lot of my thought work around exercise because my whole life I had a fast metabolism and I was thin, but my mom never talked about our bodies to me and my sisters. So it's not like I was focused on that. That's just was. I could eat whatever I want and I was fine. And I grew up in a wealthy area where all these other girls had personal trainers, like from a young age. And they were so obsessed with going to the gym and it was always about body image and weight loss. And so because I had this correlation of exercise has to do with body image, I just didn't exercise because I was like, well, I don't need to.
Wow. Okay.
It took until, I mean, I had spurts, and I would do, like, I had PE class and stuff, but just like being athletic wasn't my thing. I was an arts person. And so not until adulthood did I realize this is really important for my health. This isn't about how I look. Like it can be, but that's not what it is. So now I have like an exercise routine, but it's taken years.
Wow.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, if this analogy makes sense, is like another thing I didn't like was physical pain. I was like, why would I want to exercise if it just is uncomfortable? I get hot, I get sweaty, I get itchy sometimes because of the clothes or whatever. And I get that runner's cough, just all of it. I might get shin splints, not realizing that because I was always going throughout life without exercising, that every time I did, it was super
very painful. Yes.
Get injured. And then I thought, instead of just having a consistent routine and getting stronger and healthier, I feel like that's what this coaching is. It's like, we don't want to feel the pain. We don't want to get hurt. And so we just don't confront the issue.
Yes.
But we won't ever get stronger and be healthy if we don't start an exercise program with our mental health, and getting coached.
100%. 100%. I love that. I mean, I'm always comparing it to weight loss. That's like where my brain always goes. That's the comparison my brain always sees is to weight loss. And I love this. This is exactly what it is. It's really going to the gym for your mental health. Is what it is. Or you don't have to go to the gym, whatever your exercise of preference, Pilates videos, whatever it is. This is what it is. It's taking your brain and actually intentionally focusing on it, which is fascinating that we, as a society, there's a little tangent here, but like as a society, we promote physical health all the time. We promote self-care. We promote your physical health. We promote the self-care of your body, and we promote the educational, aspect of like, let's work on your brain and let's get smarter. But we're only just now getting to the point where like, oh, actually, it's really important to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally. And usually what that looks like is like, take a self-care day, YOLO. It's like, eat the ice cream, self-care, love yourself, but it's very different when you're just coping, which is what that typically is, right? When you're just coping with what's going on with you, rather than actually saying, you know what if I didn't have to just cope? What if we unintentionally have made things more difficult? The things that we're going through are more difficult because we aren't strong enough to go through them. But if we actually work and make ourselves stronger, then the things that we face seem easier because we are stronger, not because the circumstances have changed, but because we are more capable of moving through them.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it makes it easier as we keep going along through the coaching program, and I keep watching the modules, and it's so, gosh, I don't know of another coaching program where you get all those modules and you get coaching twice a week. So that's amazing. I've been in a few different programs, so that is worth it right there. Even if you don't do the modules, just getting coaching twice a week is incredible. So it has helped me, like you said, get stronger. And then it's just, I've not had a problem listening to all the other women because it just helps to hear them be coached. And it helps me with anything I'm going through. I don't have to be going through the same situation. And it's not about whatever content they're sharing. It doesn't shock me because it can be whatever. But that's just not what it's about anymore.
Right.
That makes sense.
Totally. All right. Tell me what else you want to share with these ladies. Is there something that you just like a message you want to share with all the women who are listening about anything? It just be your last little bits of wisdom from Allyson.
About anything. I would just say stop worrying about him. Like, I know we've talked about how it's not always easy to just say stop. So maybe I can say you need to abandon all of that worry. Let it go. And if you can't do that, then you have to come coach with Jolene because she shows you how. And it's not just full disclosure. Jolene did not ask me to advertise at all.
I did not. I wanted her to come share her story.
I'm sharing this because if you're wondering, like, if for now the podcast is all you can do, then great. Like, I joined when I felt like it was right for me, but I don't regret it one bit. And I'm so grateful that you do this for women. And I definitely want to share with as many women as possible, which is why I agreed to come on and interview with you. But yeah, so my message is just worry about yourself. Like, and don't worry about, I used to think that if I was putting myself first, I always had that scripture going through my head.
What scripture?
If you like seek yourself, you'll lose yourself. But if you lose yourself.
Is that a scripture? Oh, yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about. Like, lose yourself and you'll find yourself. What is that? Something about losing yourself and that's when you find it?
Yeah, because I think it has to do with like losing yourself in the work of God, right?
Yeah.
But in my mind, again, I was always doing things for other people. I was cleaning the house for my husband, not because maybe it started out as a loving thing, but I neglected my self-care so much. Like I didn't even have a concept of self-care. I got to the point where I was neglecting myself so much that all I felt was the resentment toward him because I wasn't doing it out of love for me or for him.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking about cleaning the house. It's everything, right?
Right.
Having sex is for him, right?
Yes.
Not for, now everything I do is for me, which I thought was the most selfish sounding thing ever. And it's not. It makes me happier because then I am able to finally be the person I wanted to be for those I love. So,
which I love that you brought this up because that's what we think. We think that, again, we have a lot of thoughts about selfishness, is that if we do something for ourselves, then it's selfish and wrong, right? That's the kind of the qualifier that we actually put on that. It's wrong to do something that's selfish. And what I typically, what I want to challenge for any of you guys thinking that is that maybe it's the very best thing that you could do. Taking care of yourself is actually the most selfless thing you could do because it enables you to take care of yourself to a space where you can show up in your life in a way that is so much more full. Like you have so much more to give when you're not depleted. And that sounds like, I mean, this is one of those cliches that I always hear. It's like, you can't pour from an empty cup. That's the thing I always see, which is totally true. But that's what we're talking about. It's like when you aren't taking care of yourself and you're just getting through the day, then all you have is the energy to get through the day so that you can put your kids to bed, so you can sit on the couch and watch Netflix, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not, there's so much more to your life that you could be experiencing. Your relationships could be expounded and expanded so much more. And we often hold ourselves back with this idea that if we took the time, the energy, the money, whatever it is that is the investment, and put that little bit to ourselves, that it will somehow detract from the other people around us, right? We have to take from our other relationships in order to give it to ourselves. And that's the concept that I want to blast. Like, that's the thing that I want to challenge right now, is that it's not actually taking the energy from those other relationships. In fact, it's the more energy you put into yourself, the more you're going to have to give, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if you ever saw that news announcement of the 2 hydrogen atoms. I think it was hydrogen. Anyway, 2 atoms the scientists took, and it created light as bright as the sun for just like the tiniest millisecond. But it was so incredible, a breakthrough of science, because it's the opposite of what an atomic bomb does, right? Where it just destroys everything.
Oh, okay.
And so I have thought about how it's that energy is like, it takes a lot of energy to be in survival mode. And it's like you said, you just get depleted and you have nothing left to give. And we think it would take more energy to actually take care of ourselves. And let's do these other things first. Well, I have all this stuff I need to get done. And so I worry about taking care of myself. But instead, if I take care of myself, like you said, now I have more energy. It's like, it just creates more.
Yes. So I love this. Oh, I'm so glad you came and shared today.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And just so you guys know, Allyson is a coach. If somebody wants to work with you, how do they do that?
Oh, my website is sensationalcreator.com.
I love it. Okay, guys, go look her up if you want to coach. She's going to help you. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Allyson. So grateful to have you.
Thanks, Jolene. Bye.
Hello, my lady. I wrote a book and I would love for you to read it. It's called The Not Enough Wife, and you can get it on Amazon today. This book is for any woman who has ever felt like she wasn't enough, not enough as a wife or as a mom, if she didn't have Instagram-worthy enough pictures, if she didn't throw Pinterest-worthy parties, if she ever felt like she was not enough, this is the book for her, and it's for you too. So go to Amazon today, go search up The Not Enough Wife by Jolene Wynn, and grab a copy for yourself and for all the women in your life. I hope you love it, and I can't wait to hear what you think.